Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sup Talk Radio. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to chime in. So, I'm excited today. We're doing a little bit of a detour. We're not talking about protein, we're not talking about pre workouts, we're talking about internal health. Okay. And I'm so excited to have the gentlemen from Wiley's Finest, Brandon and Christopher, two people that knowledgeable. I'm excited and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Brandon, why don't you start off? Tell us maybe a little bit about your background growing up, and maybe what brought you down this path to the health and wellness side.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out in supplement sales about a decade ago, working for a lot of the major retailers. I worked for the Vitamin Shop, Vitamin World, Complete Nutrition as a sales store manager. From there, it started out as kind of I was always into fitness and exercise and things like that, and so what I did was, I started learning more about supplements. You start with the protein, you start with the creatine, things like that. And then you start learning more about multivitamins, fish oil, that whole general wellness thing. And as it evolved over the last 10 years, you start to learn more, you start to gravitate more towards, okay, it's not so much a job, more of a passion of mine. And so, as the years gone on, in 2020 is when I finally got a chance to join Wiley's Finest. To be honest, I didn't know what Wiley's Finest was when I first was looking for, a career path in supplements. The fact that they're based here in Ohio and they were looking for a sales position, I jumped at the chance. He absolutely was grateful that they took a chance to bring me in, utilize my background, and the fact that I can actually turn a career into something I have a passion was awesome. And so and here I am now, just able to continue reaching people's lives, trying to enrich their life with dietary supplements, good nutrition, the whole nine yards. It's just been an absolute joy.
Were you an athlete or anything growing up?
I wasn't. So actually, I was a pretty heavy set kid growing up.
Okay.
Once I got into college, is when I started really adapting to the gym and how it made me feel, and how my body started responding to that, and it just kind of stuck with it. It became a routine. Every day, I'm in the gym 5 a.m. And now it's just like it's second nature. It's like breathing or drinking water. So it's just when it stuck with me. And like I said, with that came the supplements and how to just better enhance overall life. Now my goal is just, I want to be the oldest living person one day. Like I hope to live to be, like 120. So that's kind of my goal. And so it's, anything I can do in terms of supplementation, it just gravitates towards that.
I think the record right now, I think there's still somebody at 121 in Japan, I think. And I might be wrong, but.
Wow. I think you're wrong. Yeah, it's crazy.
Crazy, right?
And Chris, what brought you down the path here to Wiley's?
Well, I actually had the honor of being one of the first employees and head of sales for Wiley's Finest. So I, in a way, kind of helped found the brand. I'm no longer working with the brand full time, but I provide guidance to them and attend really important events like this, so we can get the message out about omega-3s and what they do for health and wellness. Because as I'm sure we'll get into, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that we should be consuming these nutrients. I'm originally from Australia, and I actually graduated as a nutritionist and dietitian. So nice. I've always been in the nutrition industry, and it's always been something that I've appreciated. And I've always brought supplements into the therapies that I would give people, from your typical chronic disease all the way to pain and these kind of things. And omega-3s were always one of those supplements I would recommend where people would come back with the most powerful anecdotes as to at least how they perceive omega-3s benefited their child or their own health. Again, from pain to lowering triglycerides, which we know that they do. And I came to the United States, and I've always sort of been more of a extrovert, and I really wanted to get into sales and marketing, did a lot of PR for a lot of multinationals, and had the great fortune of being able to start a previous omega-3 brand, which then led into the Wiley's Finest brand. And for about 18 years now, my role has always been very intimately associated with nutrition research, what underpins why it's important to consume these things, all the way through to how do we get into that consumer who's still scratching their head, they're a little bit confused, and what do they at least need to know to increase the likelihood that they're going to go down a healthier path. So it's been a career of always in nutrition, and I've always had a lot of passion for the omega-3 fish oil industry.
Excellent. I actually have a degree myself in nutrition and exercise science. Did you have a focus on a specific, or were you kind of a generalist? I don't know if I can say that right. If you were a generalist, or did you have a certain path that you were looking for the nutrition side or helping people with certain ailments or?
Yeah, it was always, I headed up a diabetes clinic, a weight loss clinic. It's always in the chronic disease, anything to do with metabolic syndrome, basically.
Okay.
So, obesity, you're dyslipidemic, your cholesterol's not the right where it should be, triglycerides aren't good, you've got high blood pressure, and et cetera. And giving people the ability to improve and turn around their health through nutrition in that arena was really what interested me for sure. But actually, funnily enough, I became a nutritionist because I was studying a science degree, and due to a whole bunch of reasons that were out of my control, I had to work with the Institute of Sport in Australia. Funnily enough,
nice.
and that's where you saw immediate effects of nutrition, as opposed to someone improving their diabetes profile for over years. And that's what really got me inspired to want to get into nutrition in the first place.
Excellent. So is the company 18 years old? Did I misunderstand? Or I guess how old is the company?
Yeah, so Wiley's Finest, we became a brand in 2012. It's a great story. Essentially, what it is, you get this family-owned company out in Coshocton, Ohio, which is about an hour east of Columbus. They had been manufacturing this amazing product, this fish oil that they were the manufacturer of. So they had this great ingredient on hand. And in 2012, they decided, you know what, let's go to market. Let's make our own product and start having this brand kind of come into fruition. So about 2013, 2014, they first launched our Orange Burst. It's a natural triglyceride omega-3 liquid. It's got your 3s, your 7s, your 9s. It's also got some just natural fat-occurring vitamins. It's got your D3 in there, some A, some astaxanthin. And that was the first product they brought to market. Fast forward a little bit, about 2014 is when they launched their first soft gel. It's our Peak EPA. It's actually our flagship soft gel. It's still the flagship soft gel today. It's typically a one pill per day. It's
kind of hard to see, but yeah.
Yeah, and I tell you what, you will be hard to find another product that gives you that much omega-3, that much EPA and DHA per pill, even this many years later. That's also the same year they launched in Vitamin Shop. So Vitamin Shop was, obviously, is a national retailer, huge for us to get in there and start to really grow this, like I said, this family-centric business across the country. After that, Chris obviously came on board. I'll let him kind of go into the whole, how he dominated the industry and made it a global, I call it a global icon, because it's more than just, here in the United States. But fast forward to 2018, we actually launched our first non-omega-3 based product. It was our Bold Vision. It uses the fluoroglutamine, zeaxanthin, omega-7. So it's a great product to overall just support eye comfort, macular degeneration, things like that. That's support the overall eye health. That was in 2018, and it's still doing fabulous. I have probably, for a vision formula, I've seen tons of vision formulas over the last decade. It's probably my favorite, and not to be biased, but it's a comprehensive formula. It can't be beat. And then 2020, we actually launched our first vegan approved supplement line.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And so, obviously, vegans have a hard time getting omega-3s in their diet, just what they're eating.
Sure.
They try and do the flaxseed or the plant-based omegas, but they have a hard time converting into your body. So we launched Catch Free. It's called Catch Free, and it uses algae oil and ahi flour, which is two unique ingredients. The ahi flour is providing you SDA, which eventually converts to EPA, and then the algae oil providing you the DHA. We also throw in some fat-soluble vitamins in there. We have D3 and a non-soy K2 to make it a well-rounded product. And it took off in 2020, and it's just doing phenomenal. You see more people gravitating towards that. But like I said, I really want to backtrack, go back to about True 14 when Chris joined, and let him tell you about how he made the brand what it is.
Sounds like it's a handoff.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. That was really great. I think the brand has done really well, and it continues to do so because innovation and quality is really at the heart of what's always driven the company. Because there are brands in the marketplace that aren't the same quality. You just bite into a capsule, you're going to taste it, and there's a way in which people can differentiate that. But being the actual manufacturers of the principal fish oil, allowed the brand to have a lot of authority to say, well, this is high quality by X reasons. And one of the things that this oil is extraordinarily fresh, industry-wide, claimed to be the lowest TOTOX, the freshest oil in the marketplace. And when one of the big reasons why people don't take fish oils or stop taking fish oils is taste, obviously it's really important that you focus on having a really, really good fresh oil. So I think we've made it a great experience for people, and we've grown. We have huge competitors that are far, far, far bigger than us. And one by one, we're starting to overtake those competitors.
Really?
And I think it's because of innovation as well. We've really brought products to market. I mean, bringing the catch-free product that Brandon says that contains an ingredient called ahi flower oil. That's unique. Not many people are doing it. We're one of the first adopters of that. We have other products that use beta-sided sterols, plant-based sterols. And we're not just going to the ingredients that's the most affordable that we can put into our products and make the most margin. Our first thing is to get the best one. Which ones have clinical trials behind them? Which ones are able to provide the benefits that we believe these nutrients provide in as few or in a small volume or a lower number of soft gel capsules. So I think making it a good experience, giving people reason to believe that omega-3s are important, is definitely some of the reasons why we were able to really influence retailers to bring us on. Because although we were the new kid on the street, we had a big voice, and we made sure that everyone heard about it.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit quickly about, again, with fish oil. Some people don't really understand the health benefits. I know, because there's so many we can list, from eye health to heart health to joints to skin to mental well-being. I mean, what else am I missing here? Maybe we can just talk some of that, for people that don't really know about fish oil, that are watching and saying, well, I hear about it. What do I really get out of it?
Omega-3s, EPA DHA, which are the two principal omega-3s that you're, at least in the Wiley's Finest scenario, is extracting from fish oil. Right, so most fish oils are very low concentration EPA DHA. In the Wiley's Finest brand line, they've got rid of the superfluous oils that you don't need, or you're going to get as much in the rest of your diet, and focus on the two most evidence-based omega-3s that have ever been researched in the history of nutrition. Omega-3s are researched in thousands of trials. So even though 10 years ago we would say it might do some things, more and more we can now start saying that it does lower triglycerides. In fact, there's countries in the world, and there's actually a drug on the market which is the same active ingredient but lowers triglycerides. We know it has a beneficial effect on your cholesterol status. So it makes those cholesterol micelles, as we call them, less likely to be oxidized, and therefore less likely to start certain ailments of the cardiovascular system. We know that for people who are diabetics, if they take omega-3s, it appears to have an effect on measurements of their overall health and well-being. And the reason why those are the facts, and the reason why every day we are now putting omega-3s in the hands of more people, is because in every cell, tissue, and organ in the body, they use omega-3s. And they do it as predominantly anti-inflammatory agents. EPA a little bit more than DHA. DHA is really important for structural development. But when you have a nutrient that is literally interacting at the receptor level in every cell, tissue, and organ in the body, you got to kind of understand, wow, this must be pretty essential. And indeed they are essential. And if you look at someone's diet and they're not consuming enough seafood, which is obviously the whole food way of getting EPA DHA, then you really should be recommending them to take the supplement form.
Is there really, or maybe what's the difference between the different types of fish oil? Because I know there's cod, there's salmon, there's a lot of different ones out there, or some more higher in one type of, I guess, omega-3 or DHA, or kind of what's maybe some of the generic differences or general differences?
The predominant difference, if you were to compare cod, which is not a fatty fish, it's still a healthy option, but it doesn't have as much fat as tissue, and with that, you're not going to get the EPA DHA. If you compare that to, say, a tuna or salmon, or even an Alaskan pollock, that they are fattier fish, and they do bring with them much higher levels of the EPA and DHA. So the type of omega-3 is extremely important, and you're not going to see many non-anchovy-based oils. I mean, the vast majority of most fish oils in the marketplace are made from Peruvian anchovies. Okay. And I think that's another really exciting thing is if we can bring a different fish species that's sustainably harvested, that provides EPA DHA, that's also a really, really good thing.
Yep. Brandon, you mentioned earlier an eye formula. So is that during COVID? Because I'm guilty. So I feel like I have a desk job and I feel that I've spent more time. And I know for a fact my eye health has gotten worse. Has that been a good seller? Have people kind of picked up on that? Or are people aware of it with COVID? I mean, I'm sure I'm not one of the only ones who suffered some kind of poor eye during COVID.
No, absolutely. So yeah, during COVID, I mean, obviously everyone's working from home. You take into account that. So everyone's in front of their computers or laptops all day. Then you take cell phones. Everyone's either down their phone, chatting or texting away, and then even video games and smart TVs. All these electronics emit what's called blue light, and so our Volt Vision actually helps support a lot of that blue light that enters into our retinas and kind of like blocks that out per se. So your eyes don't get that damage from it. And then also just if you ever feel like you've been staring at your computer all day and your eyes feel like a little more discomfort to it, we have the omega-7 in there, which is the unique ingredient that helps kind of nourish that eye and keep it feeling comfortable. So it's a great way to, like you said, during COVID, we saw an uptick in that formula. I think anyone who's working on a computer all day, I know me personally, I'm sitting here in front of a computer all day. It's made an improvement in my vision. Also, just you take your average. You talk about esports and video gamers. There's another group of people who we're starting to see more and more gravitate towards this formula just to kind of overall help support that reaction time that their eyes are going to need.
And I'm guilty because you brought up blue light, and I know on my phone there's a setting that's the blue light setting, and just because to me it looks like it gets not blurry, but it kind of tones down the brightness, I don't turn it on, and I'm sure many people feel the same way. I feel like I'm not getting the quality of the picture or when I'm watching Netflix or anything along those lines.
Exactly, and the same thing too. You ever see like those blue light glasses? Not everybody's a frames person. So if you're someone who's like, oh, I don't want to wear the blue light glasses to block it out, well, think about it from the inside out. Get yourself some bold vision, and now you're kind of tackling that same problem, but like I said, on an internal side of things.
So I'm going to be honest. So I try to keep myself entrenched in the latest trends and whatnot, but I've never heard omega-7 until this call. Is that something new, or has that been around forever that maybe I just haven't been? Because I was here omega-3 and omega-6.
Yeah, omega-7 is it's a fatty acid that we've known exists, but it's only been recently that we're starting to actually see the science and the data that says why it's important in our diet. It's just from the pollock oil, which is what we use, there's omega-7 in that fish. And so as they're concentrating the EPA and DHA out, they're also concentrating and removing other fats, these side stream fatty acids, and they can incorporate that back into a variety of products.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So we have a couple of questions here, if you don't mind, we can kind of address that some people have kind of signed in. So I guess we'll just kind of randomly choose. Is omega-3 more important than omega-6, or is there much of a difference?
Do you want me to go for that, Brandon? This is actually a subject that I'm very, 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 very passionate about. And I believe as a healthcare professional that there is one thing we're probably doing worse in our society than not consuming enough omega-3s. And that is consuming far too many omega-6s. We get a lot of our omega-6s now from soybean oil, which has increased in our diet by over 1,000-fold in the last 120 years. And what omega-6s do is you do need some of them, but there's a growing number of people that believe that we just get far too much. What it does is it tends to dampen down the anti-inflammatory effects of omega-3 by the fact that it's literally blocking it out in your diet because it's in everything you consume. It's very, very difficult to get omega-6s out of your diet because even in certain animals, poultry, chicken, you're going to get a lot of omega-6 from them. So it's more that I would say we are in balance. And if we could lower our 6s as much as we can, mind you, I always say to people, good luck with that. It's really hard. Why not just increase your 3s? And that's what a lot of evidence is now suggesting, that by improving your imbalance, People are performing better at concentration tests. They have a different effects in terms of their mental health and wellness. And it appears to be what's underpinning, to a very large degree, why we have certain ailments in our society that's really brought on by eating a westernized diet. So it's definitely, I would say omega-3s are obviously very, very important, far more important than 6s. And I would challenge people to try and lower their omega-6s in their diet so they can reap those benefits.
And I think you've touched on it a little bit, because I've always heard the term that's kind of ambiguous, omega-6 syndrome, where, like you're saying, too much omega-6 can be detrimental.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I like to think that the supplements are that easy way of addressing that chronic disease issue that we know exists, and the fact that you can do it so easily, so affordably. That's one of the benefits about supplements. We really urge people to give it a go, and people now are looking at their blood levels of omega-3 and 6. And they're actually seeing that when they take more supplements and improve their diet, you can actually reverse that imbalance and hopefully get the benefits that you're seeking.
Excellent. So here's a question for, maybe Brandon can answer this one. How much fish oil should one consume in a day?
So that's really going to be dependent on what your overall goal is, and if you're eating fish or not. Typically, we always, like, even selling supplements and selling Wiley's Finest fish oil, we say eat the fish first. If you're not a fish eater and you're not eating fish throughout the week, then you go for a soft gel. But like I said, it all depends on what you're trying to tackle. I think Chris can probably speak to what the current recommendations is. I know they've had some changes since then, but it's all about what your overall goal is going to be.
Yeah, and one of the problems is a lot of countries like the United States don't have a recommended minimum intake level for EPA DHA,
Sure.
and that's one of the biggest issues, because once it becomes law how Americans should consume, and once they look at the science and say, hey, we should be consuming more, then it's going to start appearing more in foods. We're going to start becoming more omega-3 centric, and people will walk down the supplement aisle finally and take an omega-3 or fish oil supplement because they're being told by their government that it's really, really important. Countries such as Japan, that we were talking about before, that have so many centenarians, people that live greater than 100, when you look at their diet, you are profoundly affected by the fact that they consume seafood on a regular basis. Obviously, sushi, sashimi, but even in non-raw Japanese meals, they eat a lot of seafood. And you look at their recommendations, and they're in the thousands of milligrams per day, whereas the American Heart Association recommends about 500 milligrams per day if you have risk factors that relate to heart disease. And thankfully, more and more associations are really starting to push the consumption of omega-3s more and more and more. And that's obviously going to be a great thing, so we can sway those people that haven't been the early adopters, the ones that are still a bit reluctant to consume more of these fats.
Got it. And here's one that I always hear. I know the answer, but I'd rather defer to the experts here. I have heard you should take fish oil with a fatty meal. Is this true?
Yes, fats play well with other fats. So if you take your fish oil with something that has like a little bit of butter on it or anything like that, that fat's just going to help the fish oil fat absorb into your body.
Now here's a follow they have that's listing currently. I've read the normal recommended dosage are actually lower than what you need to get the full effects, like anti-inflammatory effects, somewhere around 1,200 to 1,500.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at clinical databases that have looked at markers of inflammation like C-reactive protein, there's a variety of cytokines and interleukins that we can measure. Your consumption in the thousands of milligrams then becomes a reality. So it's very hard. I don't want to give medical advice to anyone not knowing their medical history, but under the supervision of your physician and a nutritionist dietitian, you should really look at what is right for you. That's why a lot of people now, through personalized nutrition, are starting to measure the amounts of omega-3s in their blood. And you can measure some of the markers of inflammation. So you will see firsthand to what degree you need to increase your omega-3. And coming back to this omega-3, omega-6 story, you also have to reduce your omega-6s. It just can't be one way. Then you will probably have a better inflammatory profile.
And I think it's important. You touched on something important there, Chris, that you said when you have your blood work done, but I don't think, I think generally when your blood work done, you really have to request it because I don't think it's generally recommended or at least just clicked off on the panel box.
Yeah, it's becoming more the standardized doctor, like an OBGYN, because we know that DHA is really important for mum's health, the growing fetus and baby's health, where they can really see it firsthand with their medical practice. They're starting to really recommend and measure these levels in the blood. But still, by far, the majority of physicians aren't making this a standard panel like they're measuring cholesterol or triglycerides. In Australia, in the last year, now pregnant women's levels of DHA in South Australia are being measured because they know it has such an important effect on the gestational weight and the length of gestation. So, as countries and parts of countries are universally changing their practices, that's going to be it's going to start skyrocketing and really affecting the more global landscape. So it's really quite exciting to see that.
And I think that's a problem that we always have, unfortunately, here in the U.S. And if there's any doctors listening, hopefully I'm not alienating anybody, but many doctors don't understand the actual supplementation aspect of things because you always hear they take like 1 or 2 nutrition classes in school and they don't know anything like nowadays with hormone replacement therapy or supplementation of fish oils or things along those lines. And I think that's some of the problem. They're uneducated and they don't want to speak what they don't know about.
It's very important. I mean, I wouldn't want to give pharmaceutical advice to a human being because I'm not a doctor of medicine. I'm a dietitian, so that's my forte. That's my expertise. So I'm more likely to be able to give them that advice, and that's why it's important that more physicians work with their regional, local dietitians and nutritionists who, quite frankly, know far, far more about nutrition because that's all they've done in their profession, in their life. There are obviously some physicians that also are very, very knowledgeable about nutrition, and kudos to them. But maybe we need them to help really change the rest of their industry so they're all knowledgeable about the need for supplements and how do you define a healthy, nutritious diet.
Yes, exactly. Is there a better time in the day to take fish oil? Say example of breakfast versus dinner. Is there one area with more absorption than the other, or?
It's going to just come down to which meal has more fat with it. If you're someone who eats eggs with avocados in the morning, have it with your avocados. If you're someone who has, like I said, buttered corn or something with a little more fat at dinner, have it at dinner. It just comes down to that.
Gotcha. So one of the things I do have to say, and I'm going to show my card. So I do not eat fish whatsoever. I don't know why. It's a mental thing. I don't eat fish, seafood, anything whatsoever. But I have no issue using fish oil. And I think it's just my mind knowing how healthy it is overtaking my palate and whatnot. So I have to admit, I've tried a couple of the products, the different flavors, and they're very good. They're very smooth. And obviously they're not, I don't have a fishy aftertaste. I've tried the capsules as well. I don't have any repeating burps or anything. Is there a process that takes place, or is it just because it's so fresh that obviously the flavoring and whatnot is better or less lingering? I don't know if that's the right way to explain it.
Yeah. So it actually starts on the boat, and this is probably one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite stories to talk about with retailers. So what we do is we chose Alaskan pollock, like Chris had mentioned earlier, and what it is a species of fish off of the coast of Alaska. We use a sustainably sourced MSC certified fish. And essentially what all that means is the MSC is kind of like the gold standard for making sure that these fishermen that are out there are doing everything they can to, one, not just, destroy the ocean, not catch, not do a lot of bycatch, make sure they're only catching the things that they want to catch, which is the Alaskan pollock. Sustainability is the fact that the fish has a good kind of reproductive rate. It's a fish that's going to come back every year. So it kind of starts with that. And then what they do is these fishermen, they catch this Alaskan pollock, okay? And they're actually catching it for human consumption. So if you ever had like a fish sandwich, fish sticks, anything like that, the fish that they're catching is actually going to be fed to humans. And so what they do is they fillet it on the boat and they separate what you're going to eat and what I'm going to eat. And then the stuff that's not going to be fed to us gets kind of rendered off into this oil. From there, the oil is then put on into these storage containers that are going to get railed down to Coshocton, Ohio. They go a step further. They take these containers that are on these rail cars and they fill these containers up with argon air. Basically, that just pushes all the oxygen out of these containers to make the oil even less oxidized. So it's even more fresh than, you know, if it was just coming down, because that's a hike from Alaska to Coshocton, Ohio. So you got these U.S. fishermen. They do all this work, get all this oil set aside for us, load it on these train tracks, load it in these cars, and they drive it all the way down to Coshocton, Ohio, to our family-owned U.S. manufacturing plant. And that's kind of where the magic happens. We start to use a distillation process, but they use more of a vacuum type distillation process. So it hits high heat, very short amount of time. And with the vacuum, it kind of brings down the boiling point. So essentially, the oils aren't at high heat for a long time. And that way they can get the toxins, everything out. And that all aids into the freshness, you know, the deodorizing, things like that. Chris, does that sound about right? I mean, my science is a little off, and I'm, you know, they have a whole plant of engineers that you know, are experts in this, but I'm just trying to make it easier. But yeah, and so from both the bottle, you know, the process is streamless, and yeah, it all aids into, you know, that great tasting fish oil.
Especially the liquids, and one thing they do is after they've gone to all the care that Brandon really well articulated, when they put the liquid, which you're going to taste more than a capsule, right, into the bottles, they put that argon air in there to start with. So even the finished product isn't being overly exposed to oxygen, which is why oils become oxidized and why they don't taste good in, you know, if you're putting some in your smoothie or you're even just taking it from a teaspoon.
So are there certain things you should be looking for? Like if I were to pick up your box, which obviously it's hard to see with my green screen here, or anybody else, is there certain markings or certifications? Like when you're looking at yours and maybe other brands, are there certain things you should be looking for? Whether it's process, procedure, anything along those lines, to know that it's, you know, the fresh is the fresh, the quality, harm-free, things along those lines?
Yeah, so if you look right at the front of our label there, it tells you, and we're probably one of the only few brands that I've come across that actually tells you how much EPA and DHA you're getting in that product. Most companies will just put how much total omega-3s are on there, which is a completely different measurement than what the active ingredients are inside the bottle. So definitely look for, you know, you make sure you want to see what EPA and DHA are listed on the bottle. The source, as Chris mentioned, a lot of these sources are, you know, Peruvian anchovies, sardine, things like that. So you want to make sure, one, you're using a single species, and you want to make sure it's coming from a cold water source. So that's all going to be in the ingredient side. As far as certifications go, you take a look at our box. We have a couple of shields. We have the Made in USA, so it's coming from, you know, right here in Ohio. We have the MSC certified logo on there, which means that, you know, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we have the right fish, the right fishermen, the right fisheries, that we're using everything we can, and that's all being monitored. And for transparency reasons, I could probably tell you, if you looked at the lot of that bottle, I could probably tell you the fisherman that caught that fish, you know, through the MSC. You know, that's how great they are. And then we also have, which is that other little shield, it's called SQF. This one's a little bit newer in the supplement realm. It's more of a food grade manufacturing supply chain certification. Essentially, they monitor every step of the supply chain to ensure that, you know, one, you know, everything's being cleaned properly, you know, sanitized, you know, even down to the bottles, the caps, the fish oil, anything that could, you know, go wrong will be caught early on in the supply chain to keep from like products being recalled or any type of like contamination happening before you ever even see that product. So all those things in place should all be on a label, and kind of tell you, okay, this is where I want to shop. This is where I want to give my money to, because they're doing everything they need to do to make sure that I'm getting the highest quality, the best product, and what's best for my body.
So now, obviously, shelf life unopened is quite some time, but once you open a liquid bottle and it stays in the refrigerator, what is generally the shelf life?
What would you say, Chris? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say, you know, if you're buying a liquid for just one person, don't buy the family size because it's going to take longer to go through. Buy the smaller size. And yes, refrigerate your liquids, because if it's colder, it's not going to be oxidized as quickly. But it's really what you start with. If you start with an impeccably low oxidized oil, which is in the case of Wiley's Finest, you've still got to go through a significant amount of oxidization for you to start testing it and to actually tasting it. So I would say for a liquid that maybe 2 months would be the maximum. Try and finish it within that 1 to 2 month period of time. But the actual capsules, I mean, they've got 2+ years on them, and theoretically, from that 2 to 3rd year of guarantee, you should be able to take the capsule if you've stored it in a dry, dark place, because light can also adversely affect how oxidized oils are. So as long as you're keeping your liquids in the fridge and your capsules and you're looking at the expiry date and you haven't passed that expiry date, the oil should be fine.
Got it. Now, when you look at all the different products, is there a certain, like if someone wants to try your products for the very first time, okay, is there a certain product you'd recommend for a newbie, and then followed up with a flavor? Is there a certain flavor that sells better than the others?
So I always tell newbies, start with soft gel, because one, it's, everyone's more prone to taking a pill versus a liquid to begin with. So always start with a soft gel. Always start with one that's, going to take the least amount. So a one, like for instance, our peak EPA, it's a 1 a day. It's great. You don't have to think about it. You could just pop it with any of your meals and you're done for the day, as opposed to some of these ones that require you to take, 2 or 3 at a time. In terms of liquid, I'm a fan of our lime flavored one. It's it's called our Summit DHA. It actually won a couple of taste awards from the International Taste Institute over in Belgium, which usually handles, food, but our liquid fish oil made the cut and won an award a few years ago. It's so delicious that people I work with use it as dressing on their salads, or they'll make guacamole with it. Like they'll mix it in as the oil and get their omega-3s that way. Phenomenal taste. We just reformulated it. It's actually 1,000 milligrams EPA, 2,140 milligrams of DHA per teaspoon. So you're getting that 3 grams right off the bat per teaspoon. So yeah, if you're gonna go liquid, give the lime one a flavor. Give the lime flavored one a go.
I could see salad dressing. I didn't even think about the making guacamole though. My daughter's a huge guacamole avocado toast, so I'll have to tell her kind of turn on to this.
Yeah, it's a great way to sneak it in there for her.
And Brandon or Chris, I think you might have brought this up earlier, but on your website it has, what does catch free mean? Was that the vegan or the vegetarian side of the business?
Right. So so the catch free is our kind of our one of our innovation brands under the Wiley's Finest umbrella. Essentially, there's no omega-3s in there. It uses ahi flour, and then it also uses algae oil. So it's all, like I said, vegan approved, and it has the vegan approved stamp on there as well. And it's perfect for anyone who's doesn't want to eat fish, allergic to fish, or just wants to choose to live a vegan or vegetarian lifestyle.
Now, I know from protein shakes that algae is considered like a superfood. I mean, when you make an oil out of it, is it still very dense in the vitamins and minerals, or does some of it get stripped away with the process turning into one of your products?
Yeah, during the process, they will remove all those other associated compounds, because some of them might increase instability of the oil. So they like, in the same way they do that, they take that out of fish. They use a very similar technology for the production of algae. So you really are only getting the essential fats, these essential oils from algae, and the other compounds aren't really coming with them. There are some that might do that, but they're unprocessed, unconcentrated algae oils, and then you're not getting very much omega-3s at all, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if your goal is to improve your omega-3 intake, going the concentrated approach is probably going to be a much easier method for you to follow.
Got it. And then I know you folks have a very robust product line or catalog. Is there anything that maybe is an R&D that you want to share for people that are listening or watching? Maybe anything you want to tease them with that might be coming out?
So we have an innovations team at Wiley's Finest that's always come up with new product ideas, going after what makes sense for the market. The great thing is, so we're experts in manufacturing omega-3 based products. We don't manufacture everything, so sometimes you have to look and see which ingredients are well researched, have a lot of good data behind it. So for instance, our K2 formula, we partnered with MeniQ7 for the K2. They're experts in making K2 for the Bold Vision. We use Floraglow lutein, experts in lutein. So as that process goes, it's one, if we can't make it in-house, who do we partner with? And then what kind of research goes along with those ingredients. So yeah, like I said, it's always it's quite a process. The latest thing we came out with is a cod liver oil, and it's actually it's probably our first product with label claims on it in terms of reducing anxiety and stress. There's a lot of great research done. One at the Ohio State University, there's some research talked about how omega-3s can reduce anxiety, and then there's also some research out there. Maybe Chris, maybe you're both more about the research, but as far as lutein goes and reducing stress and anxiety as well as D3. So that's our latest. That's out there now. You can purchase it. That's our latest product we came out with.
I think just the one thing on that is I think that's really what I always had pride working with Wiley's, and I've loved seeing them continue to grow in the industry. Is they're not putting fluff into their formulations. They're putting ingredients, bioactives that are truly evidence-based, that people in the United States, most westernized societies are simply not getting enough of, and they're bringing that to the masses in the marketplace to make it easy for people to bridge that gap. And from vitamin K2 and the Omega 7 vitamin K form, all the way down to a branded lutein ingredient where it shows benefits in terms of reducing eye strain, improving eye health, let alone any of the other compounds that they're actually putting into the oils. They're a real class act in terms of seeking out the best provider of those ingredients and following evidence-based nutrition so that the customer is doing the right thing and not wasting their money.
So would you say that cod is maybe one of the better sources of omega-3? Or again, if people are overwhelmed at a vitamin store and maybe there's different types of fish listed on the label, is there ones that they should be looking for over the others?
Yeah, there are cod liver oils that are very, very low in concentration, and the only way your listeners can actually tell is if they read the supplement facts panel. And if you do a direct comparison of how much EPA and DHA is in one serving, so don't look to see how many servings they're saying at the top of the supplement facts panel, and do the math in your head. You can do a direct comparison. But most cod liver oils aren't concentrated, but they still provide a really meaningful amount of omega-3s. The cod liver oil from Wiley's, I think it's about 765 milligrams of EPA DHA, if I remember correctly, branded. That's still a meaningful amount, and so you may need to take 2 servings of that a day, but it's still not very much, and you're getting a lot of those valuable nutrients that we know people are sorely devoid of from their westernized diet.
And I think it's funny because when you watch TV shows back in the 50s and 60s and whatnot, cod liver oil was almost if you're in trouble, they'd feed you cod liver oil. And now fast forward, it's like what our parents or maybe grandparents back then were doing to our parents as a negative actually might be more beneficial when you look at it down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but guys, it's been a great conversation. Is there anything else that maybe you want to share with the listeners that maybe we haven't tackled? I mean, it's been a very informative and very great conversation.
No, I mean, I think, like I said, you can find more information. If there's anything we missed, Wiley'sFinest.com is a great place to start to look for us. If any listeners out there have any questions, reach out to Wiley's Finest on Instagram, or you can stop into your favorite retailer. We're sold across the country in most independents and national chains. And if they don't carry Wiley's Finest, tell them to reach out to me on Instagram at @bballo, and I will get them set up, and then you can get the fish oil. But honestly, we're always happy to answer questions. We do this for the passion. We do this to help enrich lives. So anytime someone has a question, just in nutrition supplements, we're always happy to help.
And I didn't even think to ask: is Wiley the owner's last name, or what is Wiley?
So Wiley's is the owner's last name. So when I got hired, it was Sam Wiley. It was the guy who kind of started with the Wiley's Finest brand. Him and his brother Dan Wiley, and then there's a whole slew of Wileys that work in the manufacturing side of things. So it's a very family-owned company. When you're walking into the office and you're saying, "Oh, there's one of the Wileys," and then you see the packaging, it's surreal, but it just shows you that they're consistent with that family value and family connection to the brand.
Chris, anything in closing you might want to add? It's been a true pleasure.
Yeah, real pleasure to meet you, and thanks for having us. Listen, I think whether your listeners are consumers just wanting to learn more about omega-3s, all the way up to physicians, nutritionists, that I would definitely urge to really understand how they can put omega-3s in their patients' lives. or if you're just an avid athlete, you want to improve, your performance, your recovery. Omega-3s are starting to really become one of those vital, essential nutrients for you. And again, it's the most researched nutrient in the history of nutrition. No nutrient has been researched as aggressively in such depth. So putting these into your life is an extremely good thing. Understanding how to get them in your life, if you've realized, such as yourself, Sean, that you don't consume seafood, well, seek ways of getting it in your diet. And from even vegetarians and vegans now within the Wiley's Finest line, and other brands too are doing this, they're even giving them options to improve their omega-3 profile and their omega-3 health. So it's always a really, really great thing. And as a healthcare professional, I've always urged and formed some really amazing relationships with people through the omega-3 world, because of, quite simply and quite frankly, it's had such an incredible effect on how they feel, how they look, etc. Let alone what we are now increasingly being shown omega-3s are doing in terms of preventing, through predominantly its anti-inflammatory effect on many of the chronic diseases that many people in Western society are suffering from.
Yes, agreed. Well, to everyone listening, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, drop a comment. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Podcasts, leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. Again, thank you to both Chris and Brandon of Wiley's Finest. And as always, thank you so much for following Sup Talk Radio. Have a great night.
Thanks for having us.